it's an epiphany to realize that you have some very powerful skills that you're just maybe not put to work in an interesting way right now. And so this is kind of an outlet for those people to contribute them to worthy causes. And it feels good just looking into the eyes of the charity person who's struggling with overhead or fundraising or whatever, and you're able to like know that you actually changed the game for them. It's a pretty nice feeling.
It is Friday the 13th, but don't worry, all is good, and this episode is not going to be scary in any way. Today we're meeting Sean Tierney. I got to know Sean through Nomad Cruise, and he's got an interesting story that he's going to share with us today. After Nomad Cruise 10, we both ended up in Bali and got to hang out even more. He's also nomadic like me, well, partly nomadic. We started around the same time, but he travels slower than me. Hence the title, Sean Tierney is Slowmadic. He's also a podcaster. He does the Nomad podcast, and actually I'm a guest on that one also today. So after you're done listening here, you might head over and subscribe to the Nomad podcast. Recently he quit his day job and went full-time on an initiative called Charity Makeover, where he facilitates that people with different skills get together and find ways to help local charities. This is really awesome. And everything is something that we'll get into in this chat with my good friend, Sean Tierney. My name is Palle Bo, and this is another interview episode of The Radio Vagabond. To kick off this episode, I gave Sean a challenge. I asked him to tell me his life story in less than a minute.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can quickly say that there's basically been different phases in my life. I worked for a long time in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was born and raised. In the tech industry, I was a programmer of 8 years, and then started a company of my own, ran that for almost 10 years, and was a consultant. I've had the most winding, weird career trajectory. I was an EMT, I worked in 3D animation, I was a consultant, so I did a lot of different things, and then Act 2 was going nomadic. And I started working for a company called Pagely as their director of sales, and that let me travel the world. Did remote year, ended up getting residency in Portugal, and just quit my job last week, and so now here I am in Bali.
Oh, that was really cutting through it. Let's back up a little bit, and the whole thing about becoming a nomad, it wasn't something that was required. So what made you take that drastic life decision?
Yeah, it was more, once I figured out I could do it, I felt like I'd be silly not to. It was just, if the opportunity's there's not many people that have all the moons that line up that allow them to do this kind of thing, and I felt very unique that I had a job that allowed me to do this. And I had been plotting a road trip around the U.S. I was trying to do that and reconnect with a bunch of people that I hadn't seen in a while. And the more that I looked into that, I just realized it would be infeasible for me to continue working for this company and simultaneously planning the road trip and driving and doing all that. So I kind of gave up on the road trip. And about that time, a good friend of mine had just been accepted this thing called Remote Year, told me about it. He came over to actually just get job advice from me because his job was not remote. And he was asking, how do you do your work remotely? And the more he started describing this thing, I just was like, man, I'm going to do this with you. You should definitely do it, and I'm going to do it with you, basically. And so we ended up traveling together for a year as a part of that trip.
Yeah, Remote Year is kind of where you stay a month in a place with a group and then travel to another place.
That's right. Yeah, 1 year, 12 months, 12 cities, and it's kind of a travel program where they handle all the logistics, all the accommodations and the workspace and the flights and everything, and you just kind of show up, and yeah, the next year of your life is moving around the world and working remotely.
We've been traveling full time, well, more or less the same. We both started in 2016, yeah. But we travel in a different way. I feel it seems like you stay longer in a place than I do.
Yeah. I'm not racing to hit a bunch of places. I guess to me, it's more about slowmadding, they call it. Get to a place, stay there for 4 to 6 weeks at least, and really absorb the local culture and plant roots and meet people and get your routine. And and then if you like it, you can always extend the stay, and if not, you keep moving on.
Tell me about the day that you left and the weeks leading up to it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was crazy. I found out that I was accepted to this thing and then was leaving a month later. And so I didn't have the same extensive prep time that some of the people did. So it was basically me in a month's time selling all my stuff, putting the rest of it in storage, getting out of my lease, putting my car in storage, and doing all the nonsense you have to do with vaccinations and visas and whatnot. And so I used pretty much every minute of that 4 weeks time to get ready, and then hopped on a plane and went to Prague.
Was it scary?
Yeah. But I think it's less so when you're a part of one of these travel groups, because I feel like there's just something to be said about like 75 other people who are in that same boat who had just put their whole lives on pause to go do this. There's some shared camaraderie and bonding there, and we just immediately, I've never been a part of a group that bonded so quickly, but I think it's because we had that kind of shared experience.
Yeah. Where did you go in that year?
So we started in Prague, went to Belgrade, Serbia next. We were originally supposed to go to Istanbul, Turkey after that, but the airport bombings had happened around that time, so they routed us to London. From London, went to Lisbon, Portugal. From there, Rabat, Morocco, Valencia, Spain, and then over to Mexico City, Bogota, Colombia, Medellin, Lima, Peru, Cordoba, Argentina, and ended in Buenos Aires in June of 2017.
So no Asia?
No Asia at all on that itinerary. It was, honestly, the time zone was challenging enough with just the 8-hour offset from my company. We're based on the West Coast, United States. And I don't know, the Asia hours, I don't know that I could have made that work at the time. I was doing like 6 different jobs, so that would have been difficult.
But since then, you've been handling the logistics yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I think of something like a remote year as a gateway drug, really. I don't know that I would have done it without it. And now that I've traveled that way, I'm fully confident to travel on my own. So, yeah.
But I guess you're still connected to a lot of people from that group.
Yeah, they're still in Lisbon. So I was previously working in their workspace. So I've met, I think, 14 groups in total that came through Lisbon. So yeah, you get to meet quite a few people, and I think inherently anyone who's going to do something like that, they're pretty cool in their own right. There's something about someone who's willing to go and do that and values experience and prioritizes just new stimulation and new things over material. I think that they're just inherently interesting people.
Yeah. Did you just look at your phone? Don't worry, you didn't get a text message. It was just me being unprofessional and forgot to put my phone on silence. I'm sorry about that. But there you go. That's just proof that a podcast can make you do stuff. So now that you have your phone in your hand, open a browser and type in hotels25.com. I'm serious. Do it now. Okay, you got it? Hotels25.com. See, it really looks like an app, doesn't it? And it's really easy to use. So this is where you just type in where you want to go, the dates, and then hit search. You now sit back and relax for a few seconds. It does all the work for you. It searches a ton of different search sites, and you can just wait a few seconds for the result. After that, you can also put in different filters. For example, what kind of place you're looking for: hotel, hostel, apartment, lodge, homestay, and so on. You can also add a price range and so much more. Try it out. Play around with it while I put my phone on silence and get back to Sean. Again, it's hotels25.com. As mentioned in the introduction, Sean quit his day job and is now working full-time on Charity Makeover. It's a grassroots movement that organizes hackathons around the world to fundamentally change the game for local charities.
Charity Makeover is something that I started back in 2013. It was kind of backburnered. It was a hobby at the time. It was really an experiment to see if we could get a group of people together on the weekends and do almost a similar model to Startup Weekend, only supporting charities. So we'd pick a local charity and build something that we thought could change the game for it. For instance, I think the very first one that we worked with was a company called Veteran Tickets, which was a nonprofit designed to help get tickets in the hands of war veterans. And so people that weren't going to use a baseball ticket could then donate it, and they would make sure that it got to someone who wanted to go to the game that was a veteran. And so we helped them on a couple things, marketing-wise and just like outreach and how to publicize their efforts and all that. Another one we did, Seeds for Autism. We built them a tuition program, like a scholarship, to help get they have young adults with autism that don't really have a place to go after they graduate high school. They don't really have a lot of career options. And so they're almost like a vocational training / social club where these young adults can go and get the skills to then be able to start selling stuff on Etsy, and it gives them like camaraderie and feeling of, social belonging and whatnot. And so we built them a scholarship program to raise funds to put people through their program. So things like this, where there's just small local charities that are doing good work. They don't really have, they're focused on their cause, but they don't have the marketing skills or the digital communication skills to do some of these kind of things that we know how to do. So that was the idea.
Get a group together and with different skills that do this on a volunteer basis.
That's right. Yeah, we'll typically advertise in co-work spaces, watering holes where people who are the right fit for this type of thing. And yeah, we have no shortage of volunteers. The Lisbon one had 20 people. Our Barcelona one had 17 volunteers. The Bali, the one we're doing in a few weeks here in Bali, is shaping up to be our biggest one. So I think we're already at 17 volunteers, and yeah, we're targeting 30 for that one.
So what's in it for the volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to ask the volunteer to understand that, but it's, number one, it's rewarding to take your skills. A lot of people work for corporations where, they day in, day out, they're just kind of selling widgets, and it's not super fulfilling. And so, but it's an epiphany to realize that you have some very powerful skills that are just maybe not put to work in an interesting way right now. And so this is kind of an outlet for those people to contribute them to worthy causes. And it feels good. Like, straight up, altruism aside, you feel good in like just looking into the eyes of the charity person who's struggling with overhead or fundraising or whatever, and you're able to like know that you actually changed the game for them. That's it's a pretty nice feeling. Mm. But outside of that, there's also, you learn new skills, you're working with interesting people, you're collaborating, like kind of a shared struggle against whatever project it is, and so you're bound to pick up skills that are peripheral to what you know.
And networking.
Yeah. It's all around an amazing experience. We provide the meals, we provide donated software, we get the sponsors to source all this stuff, and really just try to like create the fertile environment that makes this possible. Mm.
And now you've made it into your full-time job. How is that possible?
I mean, it's not yet. So it's probably arguably not the most conservative way to play it. It's not sustaining me at this point. We do have a nice round of sponsorships for this one, and so I think we're not far from closing the gap. We have some ideas around a revenue model wherein we're going to basically package this experience and try selling it to companies, because we believe that this, like all the things that I just listed off, the value to the volunteers. Imagine now, instead of recruiting folks from just the public at large, if we go to a Microsoft and we say, hey, Microsoft, we know you have challenges around, cross-departmental communications and employee satisfaction and fulfillment and, your corporate social responsibility goals and all these things. If we can kind of assemble that into a package and sell them a training exercise with their people, we know how to run it at this point. We bring the causes, we set the strategy, we help people work together, and I think we can deliver like a really powerful experience for those employees. Mm.
It's obviously required that you're in the destination where the work's taking place, because you meet in a weekend or...
Yeah, right now it is. It's conceivable we could do this remotely, but I don't think it would have the same impact. I mean, there's just something to be said about being in the room and that face-to-face. I think people are starved for face-to-face, like in-person, working together, feeling good. You certainly could contribute remotely. We have experimented with having people run teams remotely. So we on the last one in Barcelona, we supported a charity in Cordoba, Argentina, and also another one in Lisbon, where I live. So it is possible to do that, but there's no substitute for having the charities in the room with you and being able to work one-on-one with them. Mm.
The Bali Charity Makeover, that's their 7th, is actually happening today and tomorrow. And Sean just told me that it's the biggest one they've ever done. 30 volunteers and 5 charities. I'm so bummed I'm not in Bali right now because I would like to be a part of this. But hopefully sometime soon there'll be a charity makeover at a place I'm in. Their website is called charitymakeover.org, and it sums up in a few lines what it is that they do. You have a unique gift, and it's the best charitable contribution you can make. Anyone can donate money to support a charity. What if you instead could work alongside other talented knowledge workers and contribute your unique set of skills to help improve how that charity functions? If you think this sounds interesting, head over to charitymakeover.org and see how you can get involved. As Sean mentioned, he's from Arizona, but he has a base in Lisbon, Portugal. I asked him, why Lisbon?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Why at all?
Yeah. It comes down to a couple things. So I felt most alive in Lisbon of any place that I traveled to. There's something about the city that is, like, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a huge, sprawling grid. And it's great. There's a lot of good aspects of it, but Lisbon is the most opposite of Phoenix that I can think of. It's a very compact, hilly, organic, old city. I think they said it's like the second oldest capital in Europe. Everything's cobblestone and just cool architecture and just
beautiful.
It's just amazing. So
I need to go back and spend some more time there. Yeah.
Anytime, man, come back. It's probably one of my favorite cities in the world, and the food, the people, the proximity to the ocean, just everything about it. I love it.
But still, you would consider yourself a digital nomad?
Yeah, so I have residency requirements now that dictate I need to be there 8 months of the year, but those other 4 months, game on. Let's go explore Asia.
8 months?
Yeah, 8 months of the year. I basically have. I need to be in Portugal.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's a great place. I love living there, so I have no problem with that.
Yeah. So when you're traveling around and from place to place, what's the best and the worst things about being a nomad?
The best things are just the constant stimulation, the communities that come from these co-work spaces, and just meeting incredible people. I think you develop a very firm, self-reliance. You start to get confident in your ability to just solve pretty much any problem, and any problem will come up. That's just through 4 years of travel. I'm sure you would attest to this. You couldn't even imagine going into it the things that you're going to encounter in terms of little challenges and things that you just didn't know what you didn't know in your hometown, right? So I don't know, you just get very developed as a person, and I think exposed to a lot of things like that, and so those are the good aspects. It strengthens those muscles of, I'd say, self-reliance and tolerance and patience and all that. The not so good things, pollution, I would say, in places. Corruption. There's issues. There's issues everywhere, though. There's issues in my country as well. So, but yeah, firsthand, you start to see, maybe some of the disparate wealth, the conditions that some people live in, and but that definitely makes you appreciate, what you have. And I don't know, charity makeover to me is kind of like, how can we, pay some of that back and just do what we can.
Yeah. So. If people want to be a part of a charity makeover, or it could also be somebody who knows of a good charity that would be interested in connecting with you, how do you go about that?
Yeah, so it's interestingly enough, I just last week finished the first version of an app, and I used to be a computer programmer. I haven't coded in probably 10 years, and you wouldn't want me to write any code. But there's something called no code, which is a new movement in software that is it's really come a long way. You now have these visual drag and drop tools, and so using this platform called Adalo, I've been able to cobble together the first version of this app that now enables anyone to come to our website. They can nominate a charity, they can nominate a sponsor, they can go attend an event, if there's not an event in their town and they want to bring it there, then they can actually just sign up and host an event, and we give them all the same tooling that we use to throw our events. And so the idea is that I'm building now the app that I'm going to use exclusively for this Bali event to run it, to recruit everyone, to, you know, handle check-ins and attendance and, you know, all the prep work and assigning teams and all that stuff. So if I can become a customer of my own tool set, then it proves that anyone can use this because we're not cheating. We're not like going direct into the database or into the website. We're actually just using the app itself as a customer. And so, yeah, so it's really exciting. It's now functional. Anyone can go there and sign up and bring it to their city now.
It's super exciting stuff, and I hope that I'm at some point. And now I'm about to leave, so I'm not here when you're doing that. But otherwise, I definitely want to be a part of that. So I'm hoping I'm in the place at the right time at some point.
Yeah, man, sign up. I made it also so you can monitor the cities that you're going to. So if you know you're going to be in Tbilisi, Georgia, or whatever, then you monitor that city, and it will tell you when it comes there. So,
yeah. You also do a podcast?
I do.
So you get to talk to a lot of nomads because it's called the Nomad Podcast. Yeah. You've done how many episodes so far?
I think 42 published. You'll be 44, I believe.
Ah.
So yeah.
And you must have gained so much knowledge about this lifestyle from all those guests.
Yeah, for sure. I actually got to do the opening keynote on Nomad Cruise, this last one, and it was the 10 lessons. I looked back through all the past guests, and I tried to just distill, like, what are the patterns, what are the lessons, the things that I can pull out of there and, you know, kind of package and serve back to people and say, hey, this is kind of what I learned from all these people. And so, yeah, there's a number of, I mean, it's amazing people. Like I said, inherently anyone who does this, I think there's something just like truly interesting about someone who's going to be nomadic. And yeah, so there's a lot of lessons.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people listen to these interviews because they want to be inspired to maybe become a nomad or become a full-time traveler or more or less location independent. So, and I really enjoyed your keynote. Can you give us a few of the biggest?
Yeah. Well, I can go in order I can think. So imposter syndrome was the first one. Interviewed a really sharp girl, Danielle Thompson, who unfortunately just left. She was here in Canggu. She left last week. But yeah, she was just like this poster child of someone who is so successful. She's like 25 years old, and she's built her own successful agency, and she's now gone beyond that and built like this whole freelance travel network where she helps other people. So just like a really impressive figure, but she has imposter syndrome, self-admittedly. Like she doesn't feel like she's good enough. And, you know, it's like if she feels that way, then, well, heck, everyone has it, you know? Like,
oh, I've had it.
Yeah.
Not anymore. But
no, exactly. And like I have it too. I was standing on stage giving that keynote thinking like, look, I'm talking to like 200 humans right now who I haven't done anything incredible. I've interviewed a lot of people who have, but like I'm just the messenger here. So, you know, I think we all suffer from that, but it's just at some point you got to get over it and just say, you know, if I succumb to this, it's going to preclude my gifts from reaching everyone else. So I got to recognize like that is just a voice in my head right now, and I got to acknowledge it, but then kind of like put it in a box and shove it away. My old boss at one of the very first jobs I had, selling knives of all things, he just say, fake it till you make it. Like most people don't know. And if you can just fake it to the point where now you're whatever manufactured confidence then has the effect of actually getting a sale, and now you really are confident because you just made that sale, then at some point the perception becomes reality. So yeah, fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that you've taken away.
Yeah. What others? Brick walls was one of them. I remember like there's a guy in Lisbon, this guy Christian Oosterveen, a super interesting story, Dutch guy. Long story short, he wound up in prison from debt. He was doing a startup, and the startup didn't work, and he was basically out of money, living in his girlfriend's house, and he couldn't pay the insurance on his scooter. And so the police came to his girlfriend's house while he was there, like having a romantic dinner with her, and they yanked him out of there, put him in jail and eventually prison. And it was like he had to hit this brick wall to realize, like, I have deep limiting beliefs, and I need to like neurohack my way out of this because no one's going to do it for me. And so this guy basically developed these techniques, and now like to prove that his system works, he taught himself how to run and just like ran a marathon fairly quickly. I don't remember the exact time, but just the lesson there being like we all kind of have to hit a low and something that like smacks us in the face to really power through it. And that those brick walls, while at the time we think they're the worst thing in the world, and you just think like, how can this be happening? It ends up being a blessing in disguise, and you just kind of have to embrace it and realize that. My favorite quote from Randy Posh last lecture, he says like the brick walls are there, to let us prove how badly we want something. They're not there to stop us. They're there to stop the other people, but not us.
That's a good one. Yeah. And the last one?
Man, I'll just give you the number one because we might as well skip to the number one lesson. Krista Romano, a guest that I interviewed, she's pretty popular on Instagram, travels around, like beautiful girl, but she posts these kind of inspirational stories, and hers was basically F regret. Like I feel like if there's one theme that I noticed that was like constant across everyone, it's this idea of minimize your regret. Like what do you want to be at the end of your life looking back saying like, I have no regrets. I think that's the ideal scenario. And so yeah, it's like there's even a decision-making framework called the minimization of maximum regret, which uses this as a method by which to make decisions. It's like project yourself forward and then think back, and what decision today will result in the least amount of regret many years from now on your deathbed. And so yeah, I try to do that myself, but I think a lot of the guests that I interviewed kind of tend to live by that same credo.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
And I know if somebody wants to hear the entire keynote, it's on YouTube, and I will put a link in the show notes or on the radiovagabond.com. So go see the talk. It's really inspiring if you want to travel more. And speaking of traveling, I remember you telling me that you slept in a very unusual place when you were in Ecuador.
Indeed. Yes, this is 20 years ago now.
I've heard of different accommodations. This one takes the prize.
Yeah, ATM booths are the beds in ATM booths are not up to snuff.
See, they don't have those on hotels25.com. They have a lot of other stuff, but not ATM booths.
Man, well, in a pinch, I will tell you this. Like, this is a hack for anyone listening. If you find yourself in a town where everything is shut down and you're there and there's literally nowhere to sleep, ATM booths at least give you a little bit of insulation and some warmth. This was in Ecuador way back in the day. I think it was 1995 when I was there. And traveling, a group of us living in Quito at the time, looking to go to the coast, to Atacames. And we had kind of plotted this out and tried to make the bus thing work. And there was a snafu where like there was a mudslide, and so the road was washed out. So we're on this bus and we get to the mudslide, and they just stop and they said, okay, everybody off. You're going to have to walk through this mud, and then we'll have another bus on the other side to pick you up. And so we all get our stuff, raise it above our heads, and we're trudging through the mud. And in places, it's like we're talking 3 feet. You're just deep in mud. And so we get to the other side. There's no bus, but there's a dump truck. And so we all hop in the back of this dump truck. The dump truck gets us close, but not all the way to the coast. And so we get into this town. I think it was Ibarra was the name of it. A beautiful town, but it was like 10 o'clock at night at this point, and it's like a Sunday. And there is not a soul awake. The entire town is asleep at this point. And so we're kind of just wandering around there muddy and with our stuff, dragging these roller bags around and trying to figure out where we're going to sleep that night. And so we just, at some point, it's freezing, and we all kind of look at each other. It's like, ATM booth, like this at least we won't freeze to death. So 6 of us huddled into this ATM booth, and yeah, it just we hunkered down and got up.
6 of you?
6 of us, just like kind of.
I'm imagining a normal size ATM booth, but it must have been
sardines is a good it's a good visual there. Yeah, no, we crammed in there and made it work, and between the body heat and
with
the
all
insulation
and all the mud.
Yeah, it is. It's not a good scene, but we did finally make it. The next morning we woke up and we got the rest of the way to the beach, and it was beautiful.
Would you be able to do that again?
Would I be able to do that exact same scenario again?
Would you have reacted different because you were younger back then and
sure.
Probably more, yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't know that how else we could have managed that scenario, because it played out the way it did, and there was literally nothing available in that town. Maybe today it would be different because you've got things like Airbnb, and we could have called ahead and had, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have anything back then, so it was just but it was a great story, right? Like, it's one of these things where, like, at the time it's awful and you're just like, God, we're gonna freeze, we're homeless, like, this is terrible. But in retrospect, like, what an incredible story that is.
Exactly. Yeah. That's when I would bring out the microphone.
Yeah.
Awesome. So again, the website is called charitymakeover.com.
.org.
Oh, .org.
.com will get you there, but it's .org.
Oh, la-di-da. Yeah. And we'll also put a link to that and to the Nomad podcast in the show notes and in your podcast app. Where else can people find you?
So I am scrolling on Dubs on most forms of social media. I also have the blog scrollingondubs.com.
Say that again?
Scrolling on Dubs.
Okay, maybe it's me not being American, but please explain.
Okay, this is a tough one to explain. So this has just been my whatever you want to call it, my handle since as long as I can remember. Like rap songs, when rappers will have those like flashy wheels, they're dubs. They're 22-inch rims, and so people spend wild amounts of money to have these flashy wheels. And I always just thought it was funny. I had like the icon was a mouse with those little like spinner wheels on the mouse, and it just, I don't know, something about, instead of rolling on Dubs, it was scrolling on Dubs. That's my handle.
That's so weird. we will never forget now. So that's on all the different platforms?
Pretty much every social media, it's scrolling on Dubs.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mr. Sean Scrolling on Dubs, Tierney. It's been absolutely a pleasure, and hope to see you again soon.
Cheers, man.
That was it for this episode. We'll be back in a few days with another episode from Cape Town, and I'm so looking forward to that. My name is Palapo. See ya. Scrolling on Dubs. Are you kidding me?